Welcome to the Dr. Tom Show. Today, I am very excited to have someone I've admired for a long time join us on the show, all the way from Cape Town, South Africa. Dr. Greg Venning is an author. He's an in-demand speaker, a father, probably most importantly, of two, as he describes them, gorgeous and strong girls, having a practice in Cape Town, South Africa, which he says he just loves to be in. He's interested in creating health as opposed to treating disease, and believes that we could all have a bigger life. So today I'm super excited to share that message with you. And Dr. Greg, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, Tom, I'm so happy to be on. So happy to be on with you today.
Well, I'm excited. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, you'll see my grin get bigger and bigger. And hopefully those listening can hear the elevation in my voice. But I'm really intrigued in this one because this is a topic that comes up a lot, especially in the chiropractors are mixed in with entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurial space. And we talk about work-life balance and creating this extraordinary life. And you say that the work-life balance is a myth. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So I like being pretty bottom line. So I'll start with bottom line and then kind of build in from there. So bottom line is balance is bullshit. And if people are on this and you're a chiropractor, or if you work in health in any way, even if you're an entrepreneur, if you think of it, let's think of the body is never in balance. The body is always constantly trying to strive towards balance. It's always moving towards it, but it's never on that line. We know your temperature is always fluctuating. You're always breathing in and then breathing out. There's never like a perfect neutral point that you stay at. So why do we think in our lives that we could find that perfect neutral point to stay at? Life just doesn't work that way. Life is always beautifully out of balance, but always tending towards something. So we get this myth of the work-life balance. And I think I don't know if that's been given to us by the industrialists to kind of make us good little consumers over time of like work this much, rest this much, spend this much, save this much. But if you own your own business at all, what's probably more important to be, let's say, balanced on is your mission, your purpose, your vision. Now, there might be times where you have to do all-nighters and 20-hour days to get that right. And then it's appropriate to have times to rest and restore and take a step back. But even the step back is not to get away from it. The step back is to get some perspective on it so you can come back even better the next time.
I love that. I like to think of it, it's exactly the same. Like the earth, the planet moves in seasons. It creates, it grows, and then it relaxes and resets again. And it's exactly the same. Did you learn this through mistake? Did you learn it through reading? How did you sort of get into this, understanding that it's not about balance? That's bullshit. It's about focusing on a vision.
I guess I was striving for balance for a long time. And for the longest time, I was way out of balance. I was a healthcare provider, but my health was terrible. I wasn't treating my body very well, mentally and emotionally not great. My relationships weren't great. And that was all I was trying to strive for balance. And just from experience, and I think I only reflected on this afterwards when there was a piece of learning that I went through, and I'll share that with you. But when I was letting go of balance and I was embracing the process of what I was engaged in, then I actually found that I felt more balanced. It's kind of like the bicycle. If you're thinking about balancing on a bicycle, you're all over the road. But if you're just thinking about riding and enjoying riding, then you can have that smooth, free flow. Take your handles off the handlebar, and if you think about trying to balance it, you're off. But if you think about just being in the saddle and kind of going, then you can actually be there without your hands on the handlebar.
So being in the saddle, would you call? Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, well, so and I wanted to share with you the idea of that piece of learning that really made sense. And a mentor of mine is a guy by the name of Mark Postles. He's a chiropractor and a coach in Australia. And one day we were talking about balance, and I said to him, listen, I'm ready to let go of balance. I'm ready to let go of striving for balance. And he said, I've been waiting for you to say that for ages. and he said, what do you have to say about balance? And I went, well, like right now, I think balance is bullshit. And he went, cool, like job done. You finally figured it out. Let's move on from there. And that just makes life so much easier. So if let's put it, let me kind of talk very personally about me and my business and with my family, because my wife is in the office with me. My two girls are often around, and we try to live as integrated a life as possible. I don't think that work and life are separate. Like I think of the reason why I've got a coffee cup, for those who are listening, I have a coffee cup, I'm holding it up, that has an infinity sign on it, because work and life aren't two separate things. They're part of a continuum. Like they should be joined together. I've got it on my whiteboard right over there as well. And the idea that there should be a work-life balance means that your work is separate from your life, which just sounds quite weird. If you think that work is not my life, it just doesn't fit. They should be part of the same process, the same continuum.
Which is true, because a lot of people, their work is separate from their life in the sense that they are living a very depressive majority of their life, doing something that they wish they didn't do, looking to run away, at the weekends and the evenings. And I suppose the bit that really stuck out for me then, you kind of got into it. There is no such thing as balance. I'm ready to do it all. And let's say you really, like you said earlier, 20 hours in the business, all of this. How does that fit in with family and family understanding that there is no balance? How do you sort of navigate that?
Well, that comes down to a clarity of values and then communications between the different people in the relationship. Like if we think about an ecosystem. So if we think about the classic model that we tend to have is people are working a job that maybe they like, but they don't necessarily love. They earn whatever living they earn from it. And then they've got family as a separate thing. It would make sense for, let's say, husband at home to be miffed if wife at work was putting in 20-hour days consistently and felt neglected, or family felt neglected. Mm-hmm. But if in this ecosystem you had, say, wife doing something she loves that makes her heart sing, that sometimes calls her away a lot, but when she's back with the family, her heart is singing, she's engaged, she's present with the family, and they've been able to craft a life through intention with communication of different values, then how can you begrudge somebody doing something they love as long as they're bringing back some of that love and they're infusing your life with that love? Like if you're a chiropractor and you're adjusting people and that's making your heart sing, you're attracting people to you. They might only come and spend a minute with you or 5 minutes or whatever it is your adjusting time, but they will gladly stay, pay, and refer for you if your heart is in it and they can feel it and they can sense it and they can imbue it. So if you can have a relationship in an ecosystem, family life that has that, but also the communicating of here's what's making my heart sing, here's what's making my heart sing. I'll serve your values, you can serve some of mine to allow me to do my own. And again, that's not perfect. So like my wife and I will have to have conversations about like, cool, do we need to cool down here? Do we need to do this? Because there's more players than one in the ecosystem.
Yeah. That's so true. And me and my wife, we run our businesses as well. And when we started, people always said, do you really want to do that? Do you really want to run a husband and wife business? And we're like, yeah, well, actually we do, Yeah. So it is a myth that it's difficult to do that, isn't it?
I don't think let's say it's not simple. There are many moving parts. So it doesn't have to be simple, because simplex means one, complex means many. Mm-hmm. But complex doesn't have to be a hard, it doesn't have to be a drudge. It doesn't have to be soul destroying. Because if you're aligned with mission, with vision, with your highest values, then you'll find a way. All that stuff becomes, I like how John DeMartini puts it. He goes, it's on the way, not in the way.
Yes.
Those tough conversations with your wife where maybe things are a little bit out, and it's not necessarily out of balance, but maybe we've drifted away from our core mission and our vision, then it can be a challenging conversation, but it's on the way, it's not in the way. You know, in the moment of that heat, when you kind of have your emotions high, that this is going to make you stronger going through, you just know it. That conversation happens very, very differently if that security isn't there, that certainty, that clarity isn't there.
I love John DeMartini stuff's brilliant in terms of, and I suppose a lot of it in business comes down to, he talks about the social idealisms, shoulds and musts in life and replacing them for wants. And if we both understand each other's visions and wants, and that's okay because that's just them, surely that makes the whole interaction easier, which is, perfect.
Yeah.
And you talk about having a bigger life. What does a bigger life mean?
So I'll talk about what it means for me. A bigger life for me is doing this. A bigger life for me is talking, teaching, sharing for as many people as I can, as much as I can. This is my vision of a bigger life. So what you and I are doing now, Tom, this is a bigger life for me. Like, I love it. I get high on it. It sustains me. It powers me. I'm all for it. A bigger life to somebody listening might not be that. Maybe they like seeing fewer people in practice. Maybe they don't like speaking very much. Maybe for them, they actually don't want to be in practice. Maybe they want to be at home. Now, bigger doesn't have to be big and gregarious, deeper, more soulful, more meaningful. But to them, I guarantee you that makes them feel bigger in their space in life. And so getting away from those social idealisms of what we should do, what we must do, what we need to do. Like you say, we get to the want tos, the like tos, the love tos. That's where your heart sings. That's where, if you are doing that, you are making the world a better place just for you doing it.
I love that. And how can people move into that? Because that's a scary thing to do. And some people might be listening to this going, yeah, it's great, but I've got bills to pay, and there's people out there who are far better at doing it than I am. This bigger life thing, it sounds great, but it's not really achievable for all of us.
Yeah, it does feel like it, and I can get that, and I get that feedback a lot from people when I'm either on stage or coaching people who've read the book, and my first answer is, well, that's great, but how about the idea, even the phrasing is, it doesn't mean you have to live your biggest life now. That would be scary. That would be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But we phrased it purposely of bigger. Bigger just means one little bit bigger. So how can you engineer your life for a little bit more happiness? Not pleasure, not short-term pleasure, but like happiness, fulfillment. How can you engineer your life for a little bit more fulfillment? And you can just follow those steps, and that breadcrumb trail is going to lead you somewhere gorgeous if we're willing to follow it. And there can be scary steps. There can be parts of letting go of an income to get something else, but it doesn't have to be done at once. Some people love to jump off the building and build their wings on the way down. And some people love to have things ordered and set out and take it cautiously. That's great. You do whatever you do, because it's not only what you do that makes your heart sing, it's how you're doing it that allows your heart to sing as well. And so you can do what you want in a way that, you can do what you love in a way that you would love it and go. So like, I like jumping off the building and building the wings on the way down. Like, that's just the way that I do things. And because relationships are made up of complementary opposites, my wife tends to kind of temper that. And that's great. And it's frustrating sometimes for me and for her, but that's the way it's supposed to be. Like, we all have all parts and there is nothing missing. And especially in relationships, those complementary opposites is what creates attraction and what helps to keep attraction going.
It's so, so true. And I suppose that being prepared to fail as you move forward in that essence as well is important. For someone to go, from happiness to fulfillment, what do you mean by that? Like, can we just be happy in the moment and that's okay, or will we always be missing something?
Well, let's start with the idea of happiness. So we again, in our social constructs, we've got this idea of pleasure and pain. And pleasure, let's take the archetypal thing, is hookers and cocaine. Pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what a lot of what we think of as happiness is actually short-term pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It's always going to be devoid of any nourishing value to our soul. It'll always be a short hit of something that overrides our biology and kind of makes us go there. Like sugar is another one. Yep. We call that food porn, because basically it's devoid of nutrients and it's just getting all the stimulus, but none of the nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where a lot of us are drawn in terms of when we think we're going for happiness, we're actually going for pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing that to try and avoid pain. But really, when we're on this path of fulfillment, then the idea is, well, pleasure and pain are just kind of, again, they're on the way. We know they're both ephemeral things that will come and go. We know that sometimes we'll be out of balance this way and sometimes that way, but as long as we're focused on mission and vision, which is where fulfillment lies, then we can make our way through that. And we'll tolerate both of those as they come and go, because we know they're imposters. We know they're just these short constructs. So in the idea of, is something missing? Only when we start falling into what the masses want, which is to always have pleasure and none of the pain. But when we're on the path of the masters, then like we'll embrace both of those and we're going to plow ahead anyway.
I love that. And I suppose the masses is what keeps a lot of people where they are these days, because there's a lot of comparison. There's a lot of, again, the shoulds. The bigger life is the Lamborghini and the yacht and all of this stuff, which I want, but I realize it's not a masterful life. But how do we get away from that? Getting caught up with the masses of what is perceived to be a bigger life and what is actually a bigger life for us?
Yeah, and that's at the same time that can be devilishly simple, but can be horribly painfully hard for some people to work through, because we've got layers of stuff we've layered on over time, and we have to be willing to really look in the mirror, look yourself in the mirror, and be able to say, how about this? Be able to say, I love you, and deeply mean that for you to you. Now, if you ask a lot of people to do it, there's a little glance away when we try and do that. Like, I can't quite accept that.
Mhm.
And and for me, that there's three levels of disconnection that breed that. And I love this concept of these three levels. So the outermost level of disconnection that we see a lot is the disconnection between us and our environment, our natural environment. And one way to look at that is you see how much violence and neglect we wreak on the planet. So that's the outermost layer of disconnection. Inside of that, the next innermost layer of disconnection is our disconnection from our fellow people. And so you look at violence and neglect that we do all the time towards others. The one where this matters the most is the disconnection from self, and that's the innermost one. And we think of how violent and neglectful we are to ourselves.
Mhm.
And a body as a representation of self, if we work in the world of healthcare, you've seen how much people are violent and neglectful of their own bodies. And we've done it to ourselves. We can each kind of look at that and go, great, we've done that too. We can honor that. So we're not judging anyone on that. But to be able to get to that, it's healing that connection to self, because you can't have connection to others meaningfully unless you have connection to self. You can't have connection to environment unless you have connection to yourself, because you would realize then that if I'm polluting a river, I'm polluting myself. And if I'm polluting myself, I'm polluting a river. You realize that there's no separation. My answer to your question, my long-winded answer, is it starts with intention to heal that disconnection from self, and the ability to sit in uncomfortable silence with yourself and be able to not be frightened by the judgments and all the other voices that come up, because you know that's not really you. That's just all that social programming coming in.
And is that how you
Because
start, with just sitting with yourself, or is there any way that people can actually lean into that today when they listen to this call?
yeah, so a great starting point, that's a really good question. Like, let's get really practical and tactical for people, is I call it the 5 by 5 by 5.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really simple. And all it is 5 minutes of doing 5 seconds for a breath in, 5 seconds for a breath out. So there is a magical rhythm that happens when you take a breath every 10 seconds that syncs the heart and the heart brain and the brain. They get into coherence. So that creates a state of coherence, which is higher function, just by counting 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. And then while you're doing that, you're going to have all these voices that are going to pop up. Now, let me just clarify one point. The purpose of this is not to clear your mind. Can we get rid of that rubbish thing? Like, purpose of meditation or this little exercise is not to clear your mind. Just focus on 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, and you'll notice all these voices and these thoughts and these constructs that start coming up. Some of them are valid, some of them are invalid. It doesn't matter. The purpose is to just sit and observe and watch them come and go and come and go. Because this is the surface layer on which we mostly live our lives. That superficial surface layer we get caught up in so much. And this is just one out of many ways of watching the surface layer come and go. And when you do that, you realize it's like the clouds in the sky. The clouds will pass and come and go and come and go, but the sun is always there.
Mm.
And the sun is like source. It's source for us. So if we know the source is always there and all this other stuff is superficial, suddenly you start having different thoughts, different feelings, different realizations. You'll still get caught up in the surface layer every now and again. All of us do. That's okay. You don't judge yourself for it. And you'll be 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, and you realize, geez, it's probably been about 5 minutes since I've counted. But you just know you got caught up in that surface layer. And the more you start recognizing it as surface layer, as superficial, as masks, as the layers we put on, other people's values we've had imposed on us or we've accepted, you'll start to open up the space for realizing your own innate values. And remember, that's innate. So that comes from inside out. You don't have to do anything for it. That's almost what you have to help to create space for.
So, which is the paradox of the self-development world, isn't it, really? Because we're always looking for things out there to help us, but where does it really lie?
Yeah. Like when I do Tony Robbins' Firewalk, then I'll be this. When I
Yeah.
do this program, then if I go to Joe Dispenza and I meditate for 5 days, then I'll be this. And the answer is, I love. I can't remember the name of the person, but I think it was a Buddhist teacher who taught that all the masters, and I'm not claiming to be a master by any means, but all the real masters are pointing us towards the moon, and we keep getting stuck on the end of their finger.
Yeah.
And if we do really well, he'll might be showing us where the moon is by talking about where it is in relation to a tree. And we might get past the finger, but then we get stuck on the tree.
Yeah.
So all these processes through all of the amazing people who've created them, and even this 5x5 I've given you is simply a process for what is innate, what is already there, what is never able to be taken away from us. But because of mothers, fathers, teachers, preachers, and taking in other people's values and the way society has engineered things, we tend not to trust our own innate brilliance. And I'm talking for myself in here as well. I'm still on this path too. I'm an imperfect way shower in this process.
It's an absolute
And if we
journey
can
though,
get,
isn't it?
like the journey is exactly what we call it. In our office, when we have our chiropractic poster on the wall, it says the journey.
Yeah.
When we give our report of findings folder to people, it says your journey. So we realize that when they're with us, we get to partner with them on this journey for part of it. Now, we hope that they can create a lifelong relationship, but people are with us for reasons, seasons, or lifetimes. And whatever it is, that's what it is. And that's okay.
I love that. And if we're on this journey together, is it true that we find souls to move along that journey? You said three things there. Reasons. What was it? Reasons, seasons,
Seasons, and lifetimes.
and lifetimes.
Yeah.
And it's accepting of that other person's value, isn't it? To allow them to come into your space for a season, a reason, or a lifetime.
That's the biggest part of it is accepting other people based on their values, not on our values. Yeah. And that's sometimes the toughest thing to do, because we see the world through our own lens. But if we can realize they have their own lens through which we see the world, and we can start to see the world through their lens, then you have real connection. And I love this thing of communication. The word communication has the root commune as its root. The word commune actually means a meeting of souls.
I love that.
So you think of how many times we have serial monologues rather than a dialogue. We have these two parallel monologues just going at each other or at people. We even think on political spectrum. This plays out on a political spectrum, whether within chiropractic or within greater politics. There's just serial monologues going, not real dialogues going, because everybody's seeing the world through their own filters.
And I suppose that's a path to being congruent and being fulfilled is to flip that around and say, well, detach yourself from the outcome of what you may say or do, because you're putting it into somebody else's filter and they may or may not agree with you on that.
Releasing the outcome is such a beautiful process, being able to release the outcome. And you think of it, if you are a chiro and you're doing your table talk or whatever business you're in, you're dealing with your client and you're trying to help them to maybe shift their point of view on something from one to another, because you really believe it'll be useful for them. You're not trying to manipulate, you're not trying salesy tactics, you really believe this will be better for them and you're giving them a choice. The best way to do that is to ask a question or plan something, but then don't get tied in it, taking you from conversation point A to B. Mm-hmm. Your intention can be that direction, but if they go to A to Z, that is their genius. Flow with their genius. You get this in martial arts as well. As you don't try and stop a block. You don't try and stop a strike. You try and deflect it and try and dance with it. Something like Aikido is a great metaphor for that, of deflecting a strike and then using that to guide somebody. Now, I know that's still kind of martial arts. It still has the idea of combat in it, which I'm not a fan of, but it's much more a dance than a fight, I think, is a better way to say that. And if you can use the other person's dance and improv to come back to yours to then flow back to theirs, that's much better than being rigid of like, we have to do a waltz now. Oh, how about we do a little bit of a tango here and a little bit of a foxtrot over there? That's much more fun.
So true. I'm sure you're a great dancer, Greg. I've never seen you dance, but I'm sure you can.
I am, without being pejorative or stereotypical at all, I am a white man dad dancer through and through. The cheesiest thing you can imagine.
I bet those two beautiful, strong girls love it when dad shows up.
It is phenomenally embarrassing for everybody but me.
I love that. And that's someone who owns himself and detaches himself from the outcome, huh? Which is
yep.
perfect teaching
Love it.
point. So what sort of things can we now put in place? Because the world is obviously going through its seasons right now, and it's kind of shifting. And I do think we have a choice, and I do think we have a huge potential to make some really positive changes. Because you talked about starting with self, people, and then the environment. What could some people take on right now with those three things to really improve their lives, move towards a bigger life, a healthier life, as we sort of transition now through this time?
So let's do one for each layer. So one for connecting with self, and you spoke about. I'll talk about this because you brought up the idea of comparing yourself to other people and how we do that in the superficial layer of society and the way we're told to live our life. So how about we realize that we are very good at comparing the worst in ourselves to the best in other people. And just being cognizant of where we're doing this, where you're comparing the worst in yourself to the best of somebody else. So whenever you find yourself doing comparisons, they're seeing more people, they're doing better marketing, they're speaking on the stage, they're doing this. Even people listening to this might be thinking of that of you or I, Tom. Realize that you're comparing the worst in yourself to the best in somebody else. And we are fantastic good at that. And the beauty is, as soon as we do curiosity, as soon as we start doing engagement and we just start noticing where we do it, automatically you'll start dissolving it. You'll start evening that playing field much, much, much more. I am a strong proponent of social media being the highlight of everybody's lives. Very rarely are people very real and honest on there. And even when they are real and honest, they're doing it for a purpose that's not necessarily yours. So if you want to stop comparing your best in yourself, the worst in yourself to the best in other people, realize that your inbox, whether it's your social media newsfeed or your email inbox, whatever it is, your inbox is nothing but a collection point of other people's priorities. Your inbox is nothing but a collection point of other people's priorities. So how about taking time, the best time to do it is first thing in the morning, and figure out what are your priorities for the day. What 3 things, say as a number, what 3 things, if you got them done today, you would feel more fulfilled. You would have shifted the needle towards happiness. And then don't sleep until you get those 3 things done. Now, obviously those other collection points need to be serviced. We want to be of value to others. So there's sometimes things of value in there. But I'll tell you, on social media, that scroll that we do, usually with your thumb on the smartphone, that holds very little value. Unless, of course, you're finding this podcast while scrolling, then it's massive value. But that scroll is usually a valueless thing. What you're generally doing is you're looking for a dopamine hit to reaffirm some belief, some value of yourself that's either useful or not. That's usually not useful, because you're either looking for your own echo chamber of how virtuous you are, or you're looking to confirm how bad you are based on those things. Like that's most often what's driving that. Because if your value and your purpose is driving that, you're not just scrolling, you're looking for a specific thing, or you're off social media and you're doing your thing that's making your heart sing, or you're with the people that make your heart sing. So I'd say that would be one of the first ones to connect to self.
Yep.
We talk about connecting to others. That will automatically then lead to better connection with others. But if we're connecting to others, let's be aware of our undeclared expectations of other people. Let's be aware of our undeclared expectations of other people. Now, you get this a lot in the business world, where you have fractured business relationships, and you get a lot at home where you have fractured love relationships, because a person isn't living up to your ideal, but you've never declared what that is. Because I guarantee you, if you thought about it and you thought about declaring it, you'd probably realize how unrealistic it is and how judgmental it is, because that's your filter.
Yeah, we do that a lot.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do. But we live in these filters. I like the idea of filters and paradigms. So there's 2 fish in the ocean, and the one swims up to the other one and says, what's all this talk about water? You're so immersed in it, you don't see it. We're so stuck in our filters, we don't see them.
Yeah.
But as soon as we start just honoring that somebody else might have a different filter, and you just do, again, curiosity is our superpower with this. I wonder what their filters are. I wonder what's important to them in this conversation. How about I just ask? A question I love asking if I meet somebody for the first time, or if it's like table talk, somebody's on the bed and I want to get a connection of where they are, is I would say, what are your passions in life? because you're asking the other person to connect to themselves, a deep level of themselves, and then share that with you if they feel vulnerable doing that. And I've had some amazing answers. I had a 3.5 hour conversation with the dude once at a dinner party, a guy I'd never met before, because he came back and he said straight away, rainforests. He loved traveling the world and going to rainforests. Like, how amazing is that conversation?
So true. We often ask questions to initiate us talking about ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if
and that's releasing the outcome.
It's so true. And we, especially in this country, in England, it's how are you doing? Not too bad. How are you? Not too bad. So there's zero interaction in that, and a double negative on top of it. It's ridiculous.
I am very mindful. I don't always get it right, but I do not like asking the question, how are you?
Yeah.
Now, often that'll put people off because then they think that you don't care. But actually, it's less caring to just ask, how are you, and carry on with your day, not listening to the answer. So what's really interesting is in some of the African cultures, I did a course last year. I'm trying to learn some Xhosa, one of the South African languages here. And for them, it is deeply disrespectful to ask, how are you, and not stay and wait and listen to the answer. It is deeply disrespectful. Like, they're caring of the other person. In one of the other African languages, isiZulu, when they say hello, they say sawubona. That literally means I see you. So how about you walk up to somebody and you say, and they stole this when they used it in the movie Avatar, they say, I see you. And then when you ask, how are you, you're actually there to find out what's going on with that person.
I love it.
That, like, imagine starting every relationship, every time you see a person, with that soulful connection. You'd have to slow life down.
You would. I mean, I tend to ask people when I meet them is, what's been the best bit of your day? Because you're asking them again to think about their time, and you have to listen to the answer when you've asked that direct question. So
yeah, it's a beautiful pattern interrupt. Yeah, that's gorgeous.
So we got to people. So what about the environment?
So the environment, I'm going to come back and start with ourselves, and just realize something we mentioned earlier that you and I both kind of nodded on and riffed on was, you cannot pollute yourself without polluting the environment. So anything you're putting into your own body, on your own body, through your own body, is going to end up in the environment. So imagine pouring a can of Coca-Cola into a pristine river. Do you think that's going to make the river better or worse? How many people would be able to do that and not feel some sense of shame, guilt, or fear of what they're doing to the rest of the world? Like, you'd have to be Donald Trump not to feel shame, guilt, or fear over that. not that I like, I'm not going to get into that too much, but I don't think it's all bad. But so imagine every time you're doing something to yourself, you're actually inflicting it on other people around you. Because so many people they do things to themselves because they're subserving themselves to other people. But how about you realize how much you're hurting other people by hurting yourself? I think one big thing, we haven't touched on it, I'm glad we haven't, and I'm bringing it into the conversation. Like, if we think of COVID now, the one thing it's taught us is that our health is not as good as we thought it was, because we're operating under the myth that not sick is the same as healthy. That's the way the sick care system operates. And you're getting some people really questioning that, and now going, my health choices are affecting everybody else's health choices. And the responsible people are going, that's not right. The irresponsible people are going, everybody has to come and save me now, I deserve it. Now, I get that lots of people aren't able to make the healthiest choices in the world. That's great. We do with what's within our means, what's reasonable for us. But we are really, really finding out that my health issues are not everybody else's responsibility. Sure, we can live in a society where we help each other out, but that doesn't mean it's, there's a line in the book, Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, where she says, your suffering is not a mortgage on my soul.
I love that.
And that for me is massively powerful. I might have the best of intention. I would love to help you, but remember, that's love. But I don't need to help you. I might want to, I might like to, I might love to. That's a very different story from putting a gun to my head and forcing me to do it, which is what a lot of our social systems do. Because then guess what? People are doing it with anger, with regret, they're doing it negatively. So guess what vibe we're putting across? Guess what happens when we do it? It doesn't have a great result, because you're not having somebody whose heart's singing doing the thing that they love.
So true. I think Ayn Rand says, I think she says as well, take care of me for you and take care of you for me.
Yeah.
So as in self first. So if people are going to start to take control of their health, having listened to this, and they understand that to improve the environment, they've got to start with themselves first. What key tips can you give someone as a foundation just to start? Because we spoke earlier about it, not, don't think of the biggest version of yourself, but think of the bigger version. What are the little steps that people can start to take to move them forwards in their health?
Yeah, that's a great question, and so valuable to be able to take little steps forward that are easy. So let's think of the three different stresses. Let's go through physical, chemical, and mental, and kind of come up with one in each. I love the idea of being chemically kind to yourself. So that's with whatever you put on your skin, whatever you're eating or drinking, whatever you're doing. Think of being chemically kind. And a way to evaluate this is a really powerful thing is you take a photo diary for 1 week of everything that passes through your lips, whether it's a pill, whether it's water, whether it's a cigarette, whether it's food, everything that passes through your lips. Now everybody's got a smartphone nowadays. Nobody's got an excuse not to do this. When I started doing this, there weren't smartphones yet. And you take a photo of everything that passes through your lips just for 1 week. And again, just with the power of curiosity and intention, you'll just start to change what you're doing automatically. If you're living with the intention of being chemically kind and you're holding a mirror up that's authentically showing you what you're really doing, the harsh reality of it, if your intention is really good, you will automatically start to shift and you'll start to say, oh, geez, I can't do that anymore. I can't do that anymore. So in the practice, we help people with this. And I can't think of the last time I told somebody to stop smoking. It's a valueless thing to say. They've heard it everywhere. They're looking at the warning of how it's going to destroy their health every time they light one up. So telling them to stop smoking is useless.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you help them to do a process like this or something similar to this, you'll be amazed at how many people will either cut down straight away or they'll come back into you 6 months later and they go, you know what? It's been 3 months since I smoked last. I don't know what happened.
Hmm.
So that's a great thing to do that's the chemical space. If we think about the physical space is simply, you know what the most underrated physical activity is? You need no special gear. You don't need any warm up. You don't need to cool down. And it's the most underrated physical activity. It's just walking.
Yes.
Get out and walk. Walking is amazing for posture. It's amazing for so many different things. It is phenomenally powerful to help a body to heal and the mind body to heal and to be well. So I would say that if you only start doing one thing, just try and get out and walk. How much? As much as you can every day.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
And then in the mental and emotional space, I think that 5 by 5 by 5 that we spoke about is a good thing to do there.
Brilliant.
And if anybody's listening to this who isn't a chiropractor or isn't under chiropractic care, please go and find a chiropractor who works from the inside out, who's not just interested in just the headaches and the neck pain, that they can do that, but do so much more. That we tend to kind of say more of a vitalistic chiropractor. If you're listening to this, find one of those near you. You can do absolute wonders together.
It's so true. And it is just small steps and finding people who can help, asking for help, accepting help, being prepared to be uncomfortable. Like you said earlier, it's, the pleasure and the pain. Sometimes the pain is getting well. Like starting the journey of getting well is not always pleasure at the start. It's, for a lot of people, it's pain at the start. So I'm glad you've been extremely honest with our audience with your answers. And it's not easy, but it's small steps, and that will eventually get you there.
Massively.
I've scribbled all over my page today, which has been brilliant. You've taught me a lot, and you've taught the listeners a huge amount. But if you had to leave them with one pearl of wisdom or something to go away with, what would it be?
I love the concept, and so this is deeply selfish for me, but it's me for you, is I have all parts within me, there is nothing missing.
Wow.
I have all parts within me, there is nothing missing. So when I do something that doesn't work, and as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, we do lots of stuff that doesn't work. We lose all the time. Small losses, big losses, like you're on the coalface, you're doing it, like you're earning your stripes. But if the idea is like, there is nothing missing, I have all parts, then you're not bad or wrong for having something that didn't work. It's just something you haven't figured out yet. Or maybe you're trying to figure out the wrong thing. Let's figure out what the right thing is to figure out. then suddenly that self-judgment, that doubt, that fear, it stays at bay.
Mm.
I have all parts. There is nothing missing. And to you listening, you have all parts. There is nothing missing.
It's amazing. I can't really add to that because that's brilliant. And I don't want to add to it because what you've said is enough. If people want to find out more from you and learn more and find your book, where can they go to get hold of that?
Yeah, beautiful. So at the moment, I self-published the book, and we published and we got ourselves into bookstores, and we covered our publishing costs. We sold enough to cover our publishing costs. So right now, I'm giving the book away for free. You just have to pay for shipping. So that's at thrivebook.co.za. And you'll be able to get the book from there. We'll deliver internationally as well. And you can look us up on social media under Live Your Bigger Life, both on Facebook and Instagram. If you just put in Live Your Bigger Life, you'll find us there. We've got a bunch of videos. We've got a whole lot of nice free resources for people to dig into that.
Really appreciate it. And I would encourage everybody to go out there and do that, because Greg has got some fantastic, as you've already heard, resources, knowledge and wisdom to give away. Thank you ever so much for being on the show today. I really, really appreciate that, for taking your time, joining us all the way from what looks like a chilly Cape Town compared to a hot and warm England, which is strange. But Greg, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, Tom, such a pleasure being with you. I've got such a buzz. This is going to carry me through so nicely.
Thank you.